Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WeatherBrains episode 1012. This is for the 9th of June. Indeed, 2025. All right. Going to be a little tardy in getting everything started. Typically, for years, we've always started the pre-show a little early, but we are, for the next couple of months, we'll be starting right at the top of the hour. A little schedule change here, but we are here and we've got it. So, welcome, meteorological summer. Welcome to those watching on the television side. We have no risk of severe storms where we are tonight. Some of you got some thunder and lightning and creepy looking clouds. But remember, creepy looking clouds do not make a storm severe. Heavy rain does not make a storm severe. A lot of lightning doesn't make a storm severe. It's all got to be large hail, 1 inch in diameter, or larger, or 58 mile per hour winds or greater. That's what makes a storm severe. So again, for those watching on the television side, I promise with all my heart, we have no severe weather issues tonight for the northern half of the great state of Alabama. And we will get the show started here in just a moment. And I guess this technically is the pre-show. This is the magical, marvelous part of the program where we typically do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time we say outrageous things. If you're looking for something outrageous, this is when it happens. All right, let's see if we get the gang on here. I think we do. Max, can you hear us all right? You good?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome.
Loud and clear. See Troy and Jen. James out there on his estate in northeast Oklahoma.
Hear me
Outside.
okay?
Troy is at an undisclosed location. I do not recognize this place.
Well, you would. I just decided to keep it low key, but I will tell you it's Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock here.
Oh,
So,
Guam.
yeah,
Guam.
yep, I'm in Guam.
I knew it. It's
Yep.
outstanding. All right. Well, let's get this thing started here. I don't want to get the good stuff, on the show. All right, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to WeatherBrains. They're kind of a big deal.
Hey, that was Bill Curtis. Maybe we are a big deal, but we're probably not. But we're here. WeatherBrains, episode 1012 for the 9th of June, 2025. Glad you're with us, and we're going to have a good show tonight. And we have one of our correspondents is in the far, far, far west. Far west, Troy. How far west are you? Past Hawaii.
Well,
West of the dateline.
let's say we're not even in the same. We're on the other side of the international dateline. Let's put it that way.
So far west, you're east.
Yeah, yeah. So in Guam and out here, had a chance to visit with Brandon and Landon, of course, the twins out at National Weather Service office here in Guam yesterday, and Jenny and all the folks out the Weather Service office out here, and doing good, and still a little discombobulated with the time stuff, but by the time I come home Thursday, it'll all be worked out. So, but and weather here, we've had kind of a little tutlow that was over western parts of Micronesia in the last couple of days. We had some pretty good rain. They've had serious drought conditions here in Guam of recent. A lot of fires as of a few weeks ago. Happy to report we've had 3 or 4 inches of rain in the last week. Most of that came in the last couple of days, and the good news is that according to Landon and Brandon is that probably they've knocked down the fire danger by about 65%. They're hoping that they're now into the wet season here, and things are beginning to quieten down. But otherwise, things are quiet in Guam. Lows of 78, highs of 88, and that's pretty much year round for 14. Is it 14? Yeah, 14 degrees latitude. So greetings from Guam to everyone.
Fantastic. We were expecting to see the nice ocean view behind
Yeah.
you, but
It's over there today, but
it's
just a
it's
little
over
less
there.
sexy today. A little less sexy. So
Now, Joey, we'll have to see who's got the nicer suite. Maybe you need to take us on
no,
a
I've got the good place, and I gotta thank the people at Hilton Guam here, and Andre and all the people. They're really great. Know them, and they always take care of me, and I always appreciate that.
Well, in a few minutes, we'll do tours of our suites and see. Let the audience vote on who's got the better one.
This is the premier suite, which I'm very happy to report.
got
It's
it spread
really,
already, man.
really good place. So good place and a good time. And thanks to Andre and everyone here at Guam Hilton.
That's awesome.
So let's go to John Gordon. John is also at an undisclosed location. John, can you disclose your QTH?
I will disclose it when I talk to you next week, but I will tell you this is one of my favorite places I've ever been.
Bucky's?
Wow.
Is it sort of opposite of Guam?
Might be a good clue, Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
In the bathroom at Bucky's, James A.
Yeah, we're at Bucky's. Yeah, we wanted to get the clean restrooms.
Wow.
And they go, "Welcome to Bucky's, Bill Murray. Would you like some brisket?"
Yes.
We know the place well.
Boy. Oh boy.
But John
so
is amazing because you can show him a hurricane glass from any beach bar on the Gulf Coast, and he can instantly tell you what city
Yep.
you're in.
Let's see. Bill, do I need to invite Kevin? Is he going to come on the show tonight?
He's down there. Don't you see him?
I'm down here, sir.
He is here. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
There's two of me tonight. He's on my iPad.
Is that an insult that it says Bill Murray on that picture below him, or is that's a compliment?
Let him answer that, Troy.
Yeah,
We have the
this
same
whole
haircut, so
thing
you
is
wouldn't notice.
baffling to me. So
I just picked up these two guys on the side of the interstate on the way home tonight.
So let's go to James Adelot, who apparently is enjoying a nice, relaxing Monday evening off, not dealing with storms for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's hard to believe I've earned a few comp days this spring. But yeah, things are much more settled down, quiet. I got a lot of writing done today, so that is good.
And Kim, I would assume you are enjoying the quietness of a calm Oklahoma evening as well, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, it's but when you have three little kids, there's only so much calm that you can have. But
Yeah.
to the degree that their sound, their thunder isn't mixed in with other thunder, yes, it's relatively calm.
Okay, well, good deal. So, and again, hopefully Rick Smith can join us here a little later. And let's see, Jen's on the line. I see Jen is here, our Arctic correspondent. Jen, how are you?
I'm great. Yeah, we had the front come through, and we're going to get down to 53 tonight. I love it. And hanging in here. We had a nice rain this morning, and now the sun's a shining. I can hear the birds out back, and all is well here in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah,
the birds are tweeting in the Arctic Circle.
I was gonna ask Kim if everything. It seems to me all of my times run together, but in the last week, the homestead, Kim, is held up okay.
Yeah, that's a great question because in the last week since we all last talked, I think we've had 3 nocturnal tornado threats, and in each case had rotation/tornadoes not far from the house. So yeah, that's been less than exciting, and I'm just feeling very fortunate that none of those times have we had any damage. So
yeah, good.
That's good. So Bill Murray, you're apparently down at a party here with some very special guests. So let's bring in your guest, and we'll bring in the guest for the show. It was going to be a good episode tonight. I feel really good about this show.
Yeah, James. First, I picked up 2 hitchhikers on the interstate tonight. It just turned out to be one of them was Ben Luna.
Ben,
the founder and incredible leader of the Tennessee Valley Weather Channel. Ben,
it was
nice
great
to be here with you tonight.
We were attending the Southeast Regional Hair Club convention. So
show title.
Way to go, Ben. Yeah, we got Ben and his wife Sarah down, because he was such a great help to us, James, when we did the show up in Huntsville, and we got them a suite down here and a little time away. So
Yeah.
it was good to have some R&R time for them.
And I don't know where Sarah went off to. I think she's off somewhere.
Well, she went off with Elle to
She
dinner
did.
tonight, and so they're at a place very appropriately named
Yeah.
Trey Luna.
Well,
That's probably one of your favorite restaurants, James Spann.
Maybe.
No endorsements over there.
Had a wonderful time just hanging out and get some rest and kind of recharging in beautiful, Central Alabama. Beautiful, beautiful place. But any opportunity I get to hang out with the world famous Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fun.
Well, and
Ben, I've got to say something, Ben, that in the last few weeks with the severe weather that you've seen over southern Tennessee, northwest and north Alabama, and over northeast Mississippi, what an amazing job y'all do.
Well, thank you.
I'm just telling you, you know that, Ben, and all your folks know that, and a pat on the back because I've watched y'all more than a couple of times, and
Thank you.
job well done.
Hey, the team that I have, the people, Fred, Chase, Kelly, Taylor, and Sam in the mix too. I give all credit to them. They, a good friend of mine told me a long time ago to make sure you always hire people smarter than you. And I walk in and I'm just like, duh. I mean, like they're incredible. And
yeah, listen, they've been calling all day asking him questions, so don't let him fool you.
No, we're making a difference, and
you are
to help people. That's what we're here for. We're here to help and serve.
Well, I tell Chase, I love it. And I'm going to make a deal with you at some point, Ben, to add Alcorn County, Mississippi in there. But we can talk about that off the side.
I'm waiting for you to come to the Berg. I mean, we've got
ball's in your court.
Yeah, we'll have Kimmel Day in Lawrenceburg. So
there we go. Thank you, sir.
And the reason we have our outstanding guest tonight is because of Kevin Laws, a great friend of the program, and he called up and said, "Hey, can we do the show together tonight?" So I said, "Sure, come along. We're just having a good old time here." So we're piled up in one of the suites here at Ross Bridge, and Kevin said, just too many people around that table." So he took my iPad in the other room here. Kevin, it's great to have you on the show tonight.
Billy, as always, it must be nice to have friends in high places.
Well,
James Spann, this is a little bit better than the pub crawl that you and I went on that one time. So I'll say,
yeah. There's no doubt you've upgraded from that pub crawl, no doubt.
Don't let him fool you. He was a guest speaker at the same conference that we were at. I mean,
and Ben was a witness. I have on very good information that this pub crawl, James did not participate. He was only there in spirit. So that was good.
Yeah.
But Kevin, I'm just going to have to introduce tonight's guest because I'm a fanboy. So do you mind if I get to introduce him?
Knock yourself out, bro.
Our guest tonight's one of the rising stars of the new wave of digital storm coverage. His live streams have gained national attention for their accuracy, clarity, and his calm demeanor under pressure. He's part of a growing cadre of content creators who are changing how people experience severe weather in real time. And we're excited to hear his story tonight and where he sees this movement headed. Max Velocity, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
It's fantastic. Congratulations on your recent graduation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, Max, I ran across your stream one day, just, on YouTube, and I was mesmerized immediately, by your style and your content and everything you had going on there. So take us back and tell us your story. We always like to hear what our guests, how they got into weather and how their journey sort of evolved. So take us back.
Yeah, so I mean, it all began back when I was younger, probably when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Instead of watching the cartoons on TV, instead I'd be watching the Weather Channel. That's just how I grew up. I'd be watching local news as well, watching their weather broadcasts. And over the years, I continued to learn more and more about weather. And then once I reached 10 years old, I got accepted into a high school and college student weather camp. And it was only for those students. And I was the youngest to ever graduate that weather camp with a meteorologist named Tim Kelly, if you guys know who that is. Also Danielle Nye miles as a part of that, both in New England. And that was one of the biggest things in my early life when it came to being a person that was, interested in weather. And then later on, I was actually the middle school and also high school meteorologist. I actually ended up having my weather forecasts on like the TV screens around my middle school and high school. And then back in senior year of high school, that's when I decided I definitely want to go to college for meteorology, even though I kind of already knew that when I was like 10 years old, I wanted to go to college for meteorology. So then I went to Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, and I just graduated, obviously, just a little over a month ago with my bachelor's in meteorology. I also toured OU. I toured multiple colleges, but Embry-Riddle stood out to me because it was in Florida and was just like a nice location. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. I was going to ask you why you chose Embry-Riddle. So talk about the program there for a second, because we don't talk to a lot of meteorologists that are from there. So we'd like to learn more about it.
Yeah, it's a pretty small school. I think there's about 7,000 people there now, so it's a pretty small school overall. There's a great amount of professors there. Like all the professors were really helpful with everything when it came to teaching, when it came to their office hours. They were basically always available. In our meteorology class for my 2025 class, I think there was about 25 of us to start, and then it was about down to about 20 by the time it ended. So basically everybody graduated that I knew of, the first year I was there. And overall, it's a small campus. It's not really that large. I mean, it's like maybe a half a mile to a mile wide. There's an airport literally right next to it, so it's pretty cool. Very different from most other campuses. Most campuses are not right next to an airport. It's also aviation-based college, so it's not just the meteorology, but there's also aviation. So there's a bunch of people flying planes and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, I mean, like my time at Embry-Riddle was great. I really don't have that many complaints. I mean, like the program was great. All the professors are great. I've made a lot of great friends through the program, and then on top of that, all the professors there were phenomenal. Like I literally loved every single professor I had for meteorology. So yeah.
That's outstanding. Troy Kimmel, I know you're an aviation guy. James A has is James A? I'm not seeing right now. I lost my optimal Hollywood Squares look. And this was right in the middle, and now it's gone because I lost James. But Troy, comment if you have anything to say about Embry-Riddle or that.
Yeah, I mean that Max, that
university for aviation.
Really cool spot. Have another friend that right now is involved more on the pilot side at Embry-Riddle and that sort of thing. But I've heard very good things about the meteorology, like you said, Max. And congratulations, my man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So Max, was there any particular event or anything that sparked your interest in meteorology, or did it evolve over time? Can you go back to an epiphany event?
Not really. I think it was just like it kind of stacked on top of you. Like every event just kind of stacked up. Like I felt like every time I was looking at a weather event, there was always something different, which I think kind of sparked my curiosity for weather. I mean, I watched the Weather Channel a ton when I was younger. That was like the main thing I watched. So watching every single weather event unfold or just the meteorologist on TV talking about it really sparked my interest over time of, enjoying weather, watching it, all the different like things that are involved in weather too. And as I've learned through my 4 years at Embry-Riddle, there is a lot of stuff that goes into meteorology. It's not just, looking at a weather map and talking about what the temperature is going to be today. It's literally like you got all sorts of derivations, you got all sorts of math and stuff that's involved before even getting into the meteorology classes. So I think it's, again, just kind of, it stacked up over time. I think the only event that really stood out to me, though, was the Joplin tornado back in 2011. I think that really kind of jumped out to me. I watched that on the Weather Channel when it happened, and, seeing the damage after the tornado happened, I think really was one of the things that really kind of kicked my interest up. I was like, wow, I can't believe, Mother Nature can do something this crazy. So that was probably like the one big event that really stood out to me. But otherwise, it's just a bunch of events over time, I think, that sparked my interest.
So what part of the country did you grow up in, Max? Where did you call home?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Hampshire. That's where I grew up for, I think, 15 years, maybe 16 years. So the first 16 years of my life or so is in New Hampshire. And we hardly ever got severe weather. It was mostly just snow for half the year. And the other half of the year, we would be lucky to get a couple good storms in the summer. I was under maybe 2 tornado warnings in my 16 years of being in New Hampshire. So it does not happen frequently where you get severe weather up there. And then I moved to Texas for the last few years of my high school years back over in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I think I got maybe 5 or 6 tornado warnings just living in DFW, which was obviously way more than I end up getting in New Hampshire. And then after that, now I obviously live in Florida. I moved there for college, and now I just live here.
So Max, you mentioned local meteorologists, and talk about any Weather Channel or other network weather folks that influenced you. But who were some of your folks that you looked up to as you were advancing along through your time studying the weather?
Yeah, Harvey Leonard is actually probably the biggest inspiration for me. He was a WCVB meteorologist in Boston, and I think he recently retired, but he was one of the biggest inspirations for me. Tim Kelly's another one, Daniel Niles, Joe Joyce as well. A bunch of them back up in New England were some of the big ones that inspired me. A lot of local meteorologists. There was also some other meteorologists that were a little bit more like famous, like Jim Cantori, for example, that really sparked my interest as well in meteorology, and a few other people like Mike Bettis at the Weather Channel. And even Greg Postel. I mean, all of those people were people I grew up watching. So I think a lot of those were like the main people that I grew up watching and really kind of sparked my interest in weather.
So Max, have you chased before? Have you ever been storm chasing? And or have you just always stuck to the forecasting and communication side?
Yeah, so I've storm chased once, but it wasn't really a storm chase. It was more of a hurricane chase. So locally, when Hurricane Nicole made landfall in, I think it was 2022, maybe 2023. It was a couple years back. It was a low end hurricane. Before it became a hurricane, though, I actually went to like the coastline to see the storm surge in one of the intercoastal waterways, and it was very interesting seeing the waves really strong coming out of like the north. They were huge, like they were crashing along the coastline. It was actually flooding underneath the big bridge, and on the other side, it was just completely calm water. So it was kind of cool to chase that, and then also go to the beach when the storm surge started to roll in. But obviously, it is pretty dangerous to ever chase a hurricane purely because of it being, storm surge. Like it can easily, kill people, especially if you're caught off guard. But luckily, it was a weak enough, storm that it was not like super life threatening, at least where we were. And it was also well before it ever made landfall. But otherwise, I've not storm chased. I am planning on storm chasing probably at some point later this year with at least somebody, probably in the northern plains. But we'll kind of wait and see what happens there.
So now talk about when you started streaming, Max, and what led to this decision. How did your idea evolve?
Yeah, so I actually started live streaming back at the very beginning of 2020. That's where it started. Many people only know me for the last like 2 years, but I actually started live streaming North Texas weather events when I had a North Texas page on Facebook, which I still have, but that's when it started back in early 2020. And before that, I was actually making forecast videos, like 3-4 minute forecasts for North Texas on Facebook, and that was where it all began. And so as I went throughout 2020, I did a couple live streams. I didn't really do a whole lot, but as COVID happened, I didn't really have much to do, so I was like, all right, I might as well just, try this out, see where it goes. I mean, I didn't really have any expectation of, growing that much. It was just more for fun more than anything. And then once 2021 and 2022 rolled around, I was mostly just doing videos. I was mostly just doing Facebook posts. I did occasional live streams for big severe weather events. The only problem was my first year of college when I wanted to go live for severe weather events, I had a roommate that did not want me going live. So it was kind of a struggle to go live for severe weather events first year of college. But after I moved into my own place and kind of moved out in 2022, that's when I really started to do a lot of YouTube stuff. That's where it really began, mid 2022. I think it was April or May. I started going live for a bunch of severe weather events. It all started in Texas, though. Progressively over that summer of 2022, I started getting people like, can you cover what's ongoing in West Texas? Can you cover what's ongoing in Oklahoma? Can you cover what's going on in Kansas? I was like, all right, I guess I'm a Texas weather page. I guess I'm a Texas and Oklahoma weather page. And then eventually it just kind of spiraled into this thing where it's like, I'm literally covering the entire country. So I was like, all right, I have to rebrand. So I think it was June or July of 2022 is when I actually changed my name from North Texas Weather Center on YouTube to Max Velocity, which was a name that was recommended by somebody that was in my chat. So yeah, that's literally how it really began. It was kind of weird because, again, it was just like a progressive thing. And then eventually I became nationwide, which I had no intentions of ever doing. So yeah.
Well, we're glad you did. We're glad you did, Max, for sure. Because you're making a difference out there. A lot of people enjoy what you're doing, and you're saving lives in the process. So, well, take us through your setup and your arrangement. I know this is a different world we're in here now, and I've watched you a lot, and I know kind of probably how you're doing it, but you don't have to give away the sauce. But just talk about the generalities of it. You seem to have a lot of relationships with good chasers, and how you pull all this together.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of funny because thinking back a year ago from today, I literally only had a laptop and a monitor. I had two monitors, and that was it. That was all I was using to do live streams. And I had maybe one or two chasers. I was running off of a really slow setup. It was getting to the point where I had to upgrade, and I actually had to get equipment that would be able to, suffice for a big live stream or a big event where I had multiple chasers and, multiple things happening at the same time. So recently, over the last year, we've made a lot of big upgrades. I'm currently now up to 5 monitors in our studio. So we were at 2. Now we're at 5. We got 4 monitors. I'm looking at this one, this one, this one, this one. So there's 4 there. I also got one off to the side. We have 2 computers for the rig that I have now, but we're actually going to be moving into a new studio, quote unquote, in the next month or so. And it'll have more space. And we're also going to have 3 computers and 12 monitors. So it's going to be a lot more stuff that's going to be happening. But there's a reason why you need monitors. I didn't really realize it until like this year. It hit me because like I have too many things going on, and I have like multiple things that are going on. Like I got a recording software. I got like I got Riley, who's my assistant now. He's also on one of my slots. Like there's just a bunch of stuff on screen. So I need to diversify everything to different monitors. So there's actually a reason why I need at least 8 monitors for my setup. So the plan is we're gonna have 2 computers in the main setup, and then 8 monitors across the board, and then another computer that'll be kind of used just as a side computer, probably whenever like Riley is in Florida for whatever reason, like he can just kind of set up his own thing there. But also I got 2 big lights. You can probably see them reflect off my glasses sometimes. This is also a light right here that flashes whenever there's a tornado warning, just kind of grabs people's attention. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the setup. I mean, there isn't really a whole lot else to it. That's basically it. So, yeah.
So, man, covering the whole country can be a whole lot. Do you have a guiding philosophy in what you choose to cover? Do you prioritize certain kinds of hazards? What is it that you're like really aiming to message about?
Yeah, so I don't really have any criteria on like going live or something like that. I basically do weather forecasts almost every day as long as there's something to talk about that's at least somewhat significant. But for live streams in particular, I don't usually have a criteria. I at least try to focus though on some of the bigger events when we could actually get like a large tornado out of an event, or at least something that could impact lives. If it's just like an isolated marginal severe storm that's producing quarter-sized hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds, there isn't usually a reason to go live for something like that. So we try to aim to go live for bigger events. And so, yeah, that's basically the criteria. It's more based off of like my own intuition. Like if I think there's something I should go live for, I'll go live for it. A lot of the time, even on a day like today, like I'm on standby in case something does happen that I know I should go live for. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm out of college, so I actually have the ability to be on standby like all the time if I need to be. So, yeah.
All right, from your undisclosed location, John Gordon.
Okay. All right, Max, I'm really impressed. Okay. You are like a future James Spann. Okay. So let's
I got the
talk
glasses.
this.
And you have better hair, Mac.
And you have more hair. James, how much hair did you have when you were his age? Did you have hair?
I've never had hair. I've never had hair that good looking. That's a good looking hairstyle right there. It's good.
So, Max, all right, let's look at warnings that you see from where you are. Kevin Laws has the best tornado warning stats in the nation. They have a philosophy in Birmingham that is very different than a lot of weather service warning operation philosophies. Where you're sitting, do you notice a major change from WFO to WFO? Do you have anything you would say to Ken Graham, who might be listening right now, about warning philosophies from WFO to WFO, from squall line to squall line, from supercell to supercell? What is your perspective as an outsider looking in?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed a difference between National Weather Service offices because I've obviously covered like the entire country pretty much. There aren't many places that I've not covered other than like maybe Alaska. It's basically been the entire lower 48 at least that I've touched on at some point or another. I've definitely noticed though back over in like Nebraska, for example, we had a tornado on the ground I think last year for like 10 minutes and it never got warned until like 10 minutes after it was on the ground, and it was a huge tornado. I mean that thing was like huge. It was lucky that it really didn't hit much. It hit I think a couple homes maybe, and I don't think anybody was injured luckily, but it's obviously very dangerous when that happens. But I've definitely noticed a difference between offices. I wouldn't say it's major across the board. I think there's only like a few offices in particular that I've ever noticed something like maybe slightly more major, but for the most part I think almost every office is pretty consistent, at least in most of the regions. But that's like the one thing that I've noticed. Like there are a couple instances where we have a tornado on the ground and it takes a few minutes sometimes for that to get warned, even though there is evidence even beforehand that it's rotating and it should already be tornado warned. So yeah.
Okay, let me follow up on there. So Bill Bunting is the SPC deputy director, and he says it's very difficult for him for watches because so many FOs think differently on warnings. Let's talk about the QLCS. So Kevin Laws is a very different philosophy, let's say from offices to his east or west on I-20. Have you noticed a big change on QLCS?
I have not noticed a huge change. I have seen, though, that there are instances where there are QLCS tornadoes that are possible, and sometimes they're the only thing that they have issued on the warning is like a tornado possible label on a severe thunderstorm warning. Otherwise, I mean, I've seen different offices issue tornado warnings for QLCS tornadoes. I've also seen some that don't. I think it just varies across the board. I haven't seen it really that consistent, though, across the National Weather Service offices. I think it's a little bit inconsistent for QLCS tornadoes in particular.
Kevin Laws, you going to weigh in there?
Well, it's tough. I mean, you're right, and it's the philosophies do change sometimes from office to office, and it's really about a culture. But let me back up because John Gordon, this is right up your alley. And you talk to how many students do you talk to a year? Probably thousands in your career, probably even. The one thing you talk about is going and being a self-starter and a go-getter. You don't have it, you innovate. This guy right here, his name is Max Velocity. He innovated and he did it the right way. So first of all, I'm very impressed with that because he found a niche, something that needed to be filled, and he had a following and all that. But I guess when we get back to the warnings, it's you know, as an agency, as a group, are we going to try to catch every single little spin that happens because we're not very good at catching every single one, right? We have a probability of detection of around 70% that seems to have dropped a little bit over the past decade and maybe now more in the 60s, but no matter what we seem to try, we can't catch all of them. And at some point, do you try to, we have to, as I've gotten older, okay, I've tried to balance more of the service with the science. When you're younger, you're as a young scientist, you want to catch every single one. You don't want to miss a single thing, right? But as you get older, you start to recognize, hey, this is not a game. This is not a video game. And you're impacting people's lives and you're asking them to take some sort of action at all times of the day, 24 hours. And is it really a good service to overwarn trying to catch that one or two that we weren't good at anyway? So it doesn't matter what the philosophy is. You overwarn, you can't catch them. You underwarn, you can't catch them. So it always seems that number never changes. So that's sort of what my philosophy was built upon, that we weren't getting any better anyway. So why not get better at least at the false alarms where we know we can do some improvements? So
I'm so far away from my chat. I'm not doing a good job as the air traffic controller tonight. So you're gonna have to really help me here.
Yeah. While we're on the QLCS, Ben, Max, congratulations on the graduation from such a fine, esteemed university as the University of Oklahoma.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to bring up a point about QLCS tornadoes because for many people, the messaging in advance is quick spin up tornadoes. And I don't think that does the necessary justice to the level of destruction that these things can bring. So just this year, with that in mind, my messaging and my team that I've tried to encourage is quick onset, short duration tornadoes. And hopefully that doesn't minimize what we're talking about with QLCS damage, because I mean, you can have easily EF3 QLCS tornado damage. But let's get to Jen and then we can circle back to me. I just wanted to hit QLCSs while we were QLCSizing.
No, Max, nice to meet you. So glad to have you on the show. I've caught your stream a couple of times. Really have enjoyed watching your presentation, and that's what I want to focus on. You have a fabulous voice. It's very authoritative, just booming sound, and you do not do a lot of uhs and ums. You're just very smooth. So talk about, having to do like a long stream and trying to keep that tone going and, keeping your energy up. And, did you take any type of, voice classes or anything like this, or was this just your God-given voice that you got going on here? But very good sound, and it's and authoritative. I really enjoy, watching your stream.
I appreciate that. But yeah, no, I've never taken any like vocal classes. The only class I've ever taken that's anywhere related to like speech would be there's like a speech, literally a speech class that was required in college. And then other than that, I took a couple of broadcast meteorology classes with Robert Eicher. And but other than that, I mean, there wasn't really a whole lot of like talking classes. This is just kind of how I talk, I guess. It's just how I've always talked. So yeah, I've just built this over the last few years. And whenever we have a long live stream, one of the biggest things, and I think James Spann can definitely touch on this too, but one thing that you should never do before going live or doing any sort of, broadcast is drinking milk or having any sort of dairy, because it literally will screw your voice. Like it has happened to me before. And that was one thing I made a mistake about in 2022 when I was doing live streams. I usually drink milk like once a day. That was like my thing back in the day. And I had no clue what I was doing to my voice because it would die after like 2 hours. I was like, what happened to my voice? I thought, I could talk, for a while. So that was one of my biggest problems. And I was able to figure that out last year. I actually figured that out in the beginning of 2024. I was like, oh, I finally figured out why my voice cannot go more than 3 hours. So I've really not had any issues since voice wise. I guess I've just kind of trained it at this point. So yeah.
So Max, you ended up in Matt Lanzar, last week's guest, article on Substack talking about the Kentucky tornado, because he had some commentary on you and Ryan Hall. Did you read that article, and did you have a commentary on what he had to say?
I have not read his article, no.
Well, he was highly complimentary of what you and Ryan both do. And Jen may want to weigh in here. This may be a good spot, Jen, to talk about that Kentucky tornado. And of course, Kevin has some good insight too. Jen, do you want to kind of pick it up from here?
Yeah, the night of the London, Kentucky tornado. Is that what you're talking about, Bill?
Yeah,
With I know you were on that night, and a lot of extracurricular talking on some of the the tweets that were going out on some of the streams about whether or not there should have been, because there was a tornado warning out from the National Weather Service, Jackson, Kentucky. Should it have been observed? Should they have upgraded the warning? And there was a lot of, quarterbacking on the sideline here, trying to make the criticisms. And so that kind of came up in the discussion. And then, just a lot of folks are streaming, whether they're doing live streams on social media or they're using YouTube or what have you. What is your philosophy in terms of, if you see something coming from the National Weather Service, maybe it should have been observed, maybe, how do you handle, that type of thing? And that became part of the article, and whether or not, should we be criticizing the National Weather Service? How do we express it because we're all supposed to be playing, together nicely and try to encourage one another and not criticize one another. And so it was a huge issue where everyone was criticizing the National Weather Service in Jackson. And so that was part of his article, and was, we stand with the National Weather Service. They had the warning out. We can all make decisions after the fact of woulda, coulda, shouldas could have happened, what have you. But what are your thoughts, during the heat of the moment and you're trying to do your stream and communicate to folks? What is your philosophy on that?
Yeah, so I think that tornado warning was radar indicated, even though it was on the ground for probably 20 to 30 minutes. I don't know the exact time, but it was something in that range. And during that entire time, I was, trying to be as urgent as possible for those that lived in the area and who were in the track of it. Like, hey, this is on the ground. Like, you guys need to be in your safe place. And even if it was not a confirmed tornado warning, the general public should just be treating it seriously. But the problem with this tornado warning in particular, I think it was around 10 or 11 p.m. And there are people that will look at their radar. I've done it before too. I've personally been in a tornado warning before. I look at the radar, I'm like, this isn't rotating. I'm super tired. I'm just going back to bed. That's one of the biggest problems. And like, if it's just a radar indicated tornado warning, people might not take it as seriously as if it were something that's a PDS or something along those lines. With that said, I don't think the communication was that bad. I mean, there was a tornado warning. Like, you should still be heeding that warning no matter what. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, there were, I think, 20 fatalities from that tornado, and a lot of them were in mobile homes. And that's obviously one of the hardest hit things when it comes to any tornado, is there's a mobile home or trailer home, I'm pretty sure the fatalities are very high whenever, one of those gets hit, especially by an intense, EF4 type tornado. So, but I think overall, like there was a tornado warning. They end up upgrading it, probably about 20 minutes or 30 minutes after it was on the ground. And I think it was on the ground for about 90 minutes, 89 minutes, something like that. But nonetheless, I mean, again, there was a tornado warning. So I think that if there were no tornado warning, it'd be a very different story. But there was at least that warning there for people to, be seeking shelter.
Kim, do you want to jump in there?
Sure. I mean, it's such an interesting discussion. There's so much that we become acculturated to as weather nerds. Then we almost take for granted, oh, these distinctions are important, that we've put this tag in, and therefore you should understand this distinction, or people are looking at their radar, and most of the public is, they're seeking information. They're trying to confirm the threat if they get a warning. The research that has been done on some of the impact-based warning language, admittedly, it's a little bit limited, but what they tend to see is that people aren't receiving these distinctions the way that we think they are. What is likely happening more is that the distinctions trigger additional actions in the warning system. They make broadcasters more emphatic. They make, like the tone of your voice change, all those subtle cues that people are watching to understand the severity of the situation. So some of this, remains to be proven in depth, but my suspicion is very strong that that's kind of what's going on. And if that is the case, then you can do that added bit of service. If you think that there's something that could be said, something that could be emphasized, arguably that might be why your audience wants to watch you. There are a lot of providers now, and there are different takes to be had on some of this. The Weather Service and the particulars that they're attending to, the whole story is so much richer than just the contents of a warning product. And that's what you all do as communicators. So I'm sort of the opinion that everyone's arguing when really the people who are, there are people who are arguing about this, but they're out there providing messaging that complements the Weather Service and covers it, in my opinion.
So, Max, talk about that for a second. Then we've got Ben here who does this all the time. We have several practitioners, because I think what Kim says is vitally important. It's incumbent upon us to do this as the communicators. So, talk about how you do that, Max, when you've got information that is above and beyond the available information publicly from the Weather Service.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the time when we are doing our severe weather broadcasts, a lot of the time I will be obviously looking at radar, looking for different storms that might not already be tornado warned. And on top of that, I have obviously now an assistant named Riley that also helps out with that sort of stuff as well. And so it's kind of a team effort trying to look at other storms too that might not already be warned and that might become concerning at some point down the road. And so there is obviously like a pre-warning that we always try to give with almost every single storm that might be rotating or might become or begin to start to rotate here soon. Because again, there are so many storms that actually don't look like anything initially, and then they blow up and they immediately become tornadic within like 20 minutes. So that's one of the things that we also need to kind of preach when we're on live streams, like, hey, this storm could become concerning here soon. It might be producing hail and wind, but there's also a threat of a tornado. So one of the most important things I think out of what we do is that we're able to be live even before, like TV local stations are live. If there's no tornado warnings, no warnings at all, even in some cases in a local, TV station market, they might not have a clue, or the people that are watching TV might not have a clue that there's something coming, and then out of nowhere there's a tornado warning. So we're basically able to give that at least pre-warning on storms if they are not able to, be on broadcast, which I think that's one of the reasons why YouTube is blown up so much. It's also, on the other hand, commercial-free coverage all the time. Like there's no ads like during our live streams, or at least during mine. There's no ads like during the stream. Like if you're watching from minute 1 all the way to the 12-hour mark, let's say, we're not going to just go off air or something like that if the weather's still significant and there's no ads either. So that's another reason why I think YouTube has just become so big over the last couple of years for the weather, and I think a lot of other social media platforms have blown up a lot as well in the weather space. So,
and Ben, 2 weeks ago tomorrow night, y'all were out in front of a brief but damaging tornado in Huntsville.
Yes.
And y'all been on the air for 5 years, and you've been doing this a long time beyond that. Talk about how you messaged that night.
Well,
And then I know you have a question.
well, I mean, in our area, which is obviously much, much, much smaller than the entire country, we focus on the hyper local aspect. And we have 16 counties that we cover in southern Tennessee and North Alabama and a little sliver in Northeast Mississippi. And anything that comes through those, I mean, we're looking diligently to warn because I mean, you look at the size of some of the CWAs and the NWS, I've always believed they do the best possible job they can. And, kudos to Birmingham for the status that they have in doing what they do it's phenomenal. But I look at what we try to offer our team is an extra set of eyes for them, and with our chat to them, we're able to say, hey, look, we're seeing something here. Just wanted to make sure you guys see this too, because the Nashville and Memphis CWAs are so large. Huntsville is, I think, a very good sized county warning area. But the rest, I think, the folks need help. So, I think we try to step in and just to do that and, still communicate to our viewers without warning, without, saying we're going to issue. We do not. But we say, hey, look, we're watching this rotating storm. We don't have a warning yet. That's coming. Possibly, but we would feel better if you went through your tornado safety measures now, because this thing is really tightening up, et cetera. So I wanted to talk about, because we got on the topic of tornado warnings, tornado warning fatigue. And this is something that hit me like Bill said. I've been around this industry for, a few years now. And a dear friend of mine last week pulled me aside and said, hey, we're in an active pattern. We've been in this active pattern, really for the past year. And he said, can you not only warn me when something is on the ground coming toward where I'm at? I said, does it work that way? But he said, every time it seems like we get a thunderstorm here lately, it's boom, tornado warning, tornado warning, tornado warning. And he said, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. And I feel like, I think everybody's doing a wonderful job because those warned storms are justly warned. They're not unwarned. But to the average viewer, I feel like to a degree, regardless of confirmed rate, touchdown rate, whatever, I'm afraid that they are. And I love the tornado emergency. And I go back to the tour emergency for Huntsville a few weeks ago. They said, well, why can't you do that? So, well, again, it doesn't work that way. But I think we're contending with people letting their guard down because, yes, a more active year, more active season leads to people who just simply, oh, well, whatever. So, and Max, because I know you get a lot of comments from across the country. Do you see that too? Do you see people letting their guard down just because, well, we've had so many lately and I'm just tired of going through the motions of going to the basement, going to the closet, et cetera? That's
I used to live in North Texas, and I think I was under, I don't know, 6 tornado warnings in Denton County in my 3 years of being there. And I do think there is actually a real thing there where it's like if you're under 6 or 7 tornado warnings, you would think there would be a tornado out of them. And I don't think we had a single tornado out of any of those tornado warnings. And I think actually, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure we had one tornado confirmed in that county when I lived there, at least within like a 10-mile radius of me. And I don't even think that was tornado warned when it happened. It was like a weak tornado. So I think it's actually kind of an interesting topic because there is definitely something there where it's like if you are under a bunch of tornado warnings, let's say it's 8 or 9 or whatever it is, and you never see a tornado or even have one in proximity of you, I do think there is some level of fatigue there for the general audience. And unless you live in like, Kansas, Oklahoma, or Texas, let's just say you live back over in like Eastern Virginia or something like that, where it's like, that weather never happens. I do think like if you're back over in like the Southern Plains where you get tornado warnings very frequently, you don't see anything. I do think there's definitely a lot of fatigue there for, the general audience, especially if there's no tornado in that general area.
I got a lot of things to say, but I know I'm not on Bill Murray's
We're
list
just letting
here.
your pressure
I'm
cooker build up here, James.
no. So listen, and it's great where you can talk about a storm that's in rotation. It might produce a tornado, but I have the other problem. It's just like I'm fighting tornado warning fatigue. I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it every day. Like today, where we are, Alabama, I don't know where it comes from. And I'm busy. I've been busy since 4 o'clock this morning. I've not had 1 second to do analytical thinking really about the cause of this. But I can't tell you how many private messages I've received from people scared to death of tornadoes today because they heard we were going to have tornadoes. Who said that? Who said it? Where did it come from? I don't know where it comes from. Is it the Weather Service? Is it the broadcasters? Is it first code warning, code red weather emergency days from TV, TikTok, YouTube? And it's gotten out of hand. We have a rain cooled air mass. We have no tornadoes here. And again, some weather service offices, and it's a different culture, their false alarm ratio, it's out of hand. Warning after warning after warning after warning after warning after warning. Nothing happens. There's a warning addiction problem here in this country, and it's got to stop. Somebody has to have a dose of sanity and get this thing under control. I'm sorry, Bill. I'll stop there because I'll get in trouble if I keep talking. But it's affecting
Max, respond to what James
mental
said.
health. It's affecting the effectiveness of the warning process because all people hear is warning, 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 code red, weather emergency. Red lights flashing. All the TikTokers, all the YouTubers, all the broadcasters, everybody has gotten into this business. And what's happened? Something has changed in the weather enterprise. And I'm talking not just the hobbyists, but the professional weather enterprise. And we've got to get a grasp on this or nobody will be doing anything when there's a tornado down approaching their house. And we've got to stop it. So, all right, I'm done. Sorry.
So Max, respond to that rant right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, if you go to any social media platform, it's gotten bad. I mean, I don't remember 5 years ago, about 6 years ago when weather started to become a thing on social media. I don't really remember there being much of anything. Like there wasn't really anything on YouTube. There wasn't really much even on Facebook. And I started on Facebook and there were very little people even posting weather to, any social media platform. But I think the biggest thing is nowadays there are so many monetization sources through every single platform that I think a lot of people have gotten into weather, and they've also gotten into this fear porn thing where it's like, oh, we got a Category 6 hurricane coming to Florida. I bet everyone in this Zoom call has seen that, from last year. That was like the biggest thing ever, it seemed like, on TikTok or whatever. So I think there is definitely something there where it's just like, I think there are people that are just out there just trying to, get the money or whatever, like whether it's quick or whatever it is. And then maybe if their, account falls off, they can make another page and do the same exact thing. But I think that also goes back to, having credibility and also having, there being stats there where you are actually doing something. I feel like with our channel on YouTube, we've actually saved lives. Like I've had, dozens and really hundreds probably of emails. I can't read all my emails, but I get like hundreds of emails. I get, tons of messages on Facebook, a bunch of comments, on my videos and streams too, where it's like, you basically saved my life. Like I had no clue there's a tornado coming and you gave me like an early warning to it as well. And that's one of the things that I've done a lot on, our streams, even without having an assistant now, but even just by myself for the last 2 or 3 years, I was able to call out tornado warnings well ahead of time. And most of the time I was accurate on those. There's very little times where I'm like, this storm's rotating, it's probably going to get tornado warned, and it doesn't end up getting tornado warned. So I think that also goes to show that there is a positive side to social media. There's obviously a negative side where it's just like there's a bunch of fear porn. I'd say probably about 70 to 80% of the weather information out there has definitely gotten to that point. So there has to be a way to obviously combat that too, but it's definitely gotten a lot worse over the last few years. I don't remember ever being bad before 2022. I think it really got bad after 2022. So
Max, do you think we have too many severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings from the Weather Service?
Not really. No, I think honestly, I've not seen an event where like even recently, like I don't feel like there's very many events where there are way too many warnings. Like I feel like the warnings are all justified. I do think sometimes the size of the warnings are sometimes too large. I do feel like when we get a tornado warning, for example, on a storm that is likely not going to produce anything more than like a EF1 or something like that. Let's just say it's like a low end day where it's like there could be like a brief tornado out of a storm, and sometimes they make this big polygon where it's just way too large, and if there's to be a tornado, it probably will not go that far north or that far south. But obviously, the warning polygon needs to be, I think, large enough to the point where it at least encompasses where a tornado may go. But again, generally speaking, I don't think we have too many warnings. I think the warning number, with any event that I've covered this year or even over the last few years, has been appropriate.
Okay. I wanted to circle back. James A., you had a comment that I wanted to make sure you mentioned in the chat about the southern severe weather season being so long.
Yeah. At the risk of being Spanish, I kind of have two comments. One, the South is its own problem because it's such a prolonged period of potential severe weather. I mean, you're looking at December through May, where Oklahoma, it is a quick toothache. It is an acute pain. We have a big spike April into May, and then we see that drop. The other perspective is to circle back to the other thing to say is circling back to the tornado warning and tornado emergency and who is raising the most hell about that. And I think it's very helpful for us, not only in the communication business, but in the warning creation business for our colleagues at the National Weather Service to put ourselves in perspective of the end user. So for a lot of stuff, the National Weather Service with impact-based things, as Kim said, that amplifies the messaging from the communicators. But I think the communicators also need to have in mind what is the relevant information the receiver of this really wants to know. We often think that we're the gatekeepers of information. Well, they don't really need to know that. What if they want to know that? I think it does us good to put ourselves in the shoes of those receiving the warning that may not have meteorology training at all, that don't give a, what, if there's a tornado emergency or not. They want to know if it's going to hit their house. But so I think, the old saying of put yourself in the other person's shoes and
Well,
give that a
that's a
try.
perfect segue back to what Jen said several minutes ago in the chat about, the day of the Kentucky tornadoes. She was walking around doing what, Jen?
Well, I was just hanging out, but I ended up talking to somebody. No, I was talking to
Had some
somebody
pizza,
about.
went to the post office.
Yeah, I mean, do you want my schedule? I'm totally kidding. No, I ended up talking to these ladies about the severe weather threat that night in Kentucky, and they immediately asked me, which is worse, the watch or the warning? And so I had to explain, the warning is. And so if we have still a problem, John Gordon is pointing at me.
John's up next.
I know. But we still have a problem with watch versus warning. Then we're obviously still going to have problems with the tier of the warnings. And so it's very frustrating. Because I want to make sure that we're communicating properly. And I'm not mad at anybody, who doesn't know the difference between watch and warning it, but that just shows that the breakdown in what we're trying to share to folks. And how do we communicate that better? And I want to compliment Ben and his approach with being helpful and not criticizing, because the night of the London tornado, it drove me insane that we were being so critical, and it was such a distraction that we are bombarded left and right with so much stuff, and we're trying to help people. It is not helpful to continue to criticize in the middle of it all. It's not helpful. Please don't do it. And please, for the love of Pete, stop posting tornadoes that happened 3 years ago during coverage. It drives me insane. It's not even the tornado.
They're a bunch of jabronis.
Jabronis.
There
That's
we go.
right.
Pick up your bingo card, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
But I mean, doctors don't argue about this in an emergency room when they're trying to save somebody's lives. I don't
Yes.
think.
I
Maybe they
hope
do.
not. I hope not. No, that's a good point. John, why are you pointing at me? You tell me what's
I'm-
going on here.
He's pointing at all of us.
I'm pointing at Kim because Kim and I don't agree on this at all.
Oh, good. All right, let's
Oh,
have a
here we
rock
go.
vote
Oh,
right now.
good.
James Spinn and I talked about this several weeks ago. I don't agree. When I went to the Kentucky State Fair for 25 years, I could give you a free anything you wanted at the booth. All you had to answer was one question, Max. And I don't know if your parents or your relatives know this. Which is worse, a watch or a warning? And it's never been over 50% except for Kim's family.
Well,
it just
define
doesn't
worse,
make
John Gordon.
sense.
I feel like it
Wait
should be
a
pretty
minute.
obvious. I mean, the terminology. I mean, when you get a warning, I mean, it's a warning.
Max,
watch,
come to the
I-
state fair. Come to the state fair, Max. Let's watch
John.
you get frustrated.
Dollar
John,
General, Target,
pers-
Walmart.
Perspective.
No,
those
Walmart.
are-
John. In defense of our argument, which I love having a good fight, so let's keep fighting. This is a really interesting question. There's a lot of ways to look at it. I don't know. So my position isn't necessarily that everyone you talk to is going to know the definition. My position is a little bit more. I don't think it matters. And the reason I don't think it matters is because of all of the ancillary cues people have around them. You are functioning differently as a communicator when it's a warning versus a watch. The whole system is reacting differently. The environment's different. Like, I think that there's just stuff like people can flip on their TV or the radio and see that storms aren't anywhere close. Like I think that in my mind, it just comes down to the words, just like with tiered warnings, just like with the threat tags. They're more important for you as a communicator to pass messages downstream, like Oklahoma James was talking about, that you can use that to sort of tailor your activities, your messaging, you know your constituents, and you can pass those things along and start a chain of things. And it's the whole system working in concert that's what people are experiencing, not just the terms.
That may be true. Okay. Max, can I jump? I just want to bring this up. You said something that Kevin Laws just lost more hair on. You thought that the Weather Service, you didn't think there was too many warnings. Have you ever heard of the IAM cow? Have you ever looked at the statistics across the agency? Have you ever taken the time to look at that, Max?
No, I have not.
I would encourage you.
He's going to do it. He's going to do it tomorrow.
I would
He's gonna
encourage
go
you
tomorrow.
I would encourage you to do this.
Stop.
Hang on. Stop. So let's just ask, Max, how many warnings are issued a year in the CONUS by the Weather Service?
How many
And
warnings?
I'm talking,
oh man.
and I'm talking, wait a minute, hang on. I'm talking about the warnings where we're asking somebody to do something protective. So tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm, flash flood, the big ones, the big three. How many a year do we issue, do you think?
I gotta do some math here. It's got to at least be 10,000.
Anybody want to clue them in?
Give me
That
one
was
second.
a
Let me
that
do
was a
quick
troubling grunt
calculation.
by triple
I'm
fake Bill
gonna
Murray.
go with 40,000. 45,000.
Yeah, you're getting closer. So
I was about to say,
basically
because
we're
I'm guessing we have approximately, like, I mean, it has to be averaged out, but approximately probably like 150 a day. And if we're including flash flood warnings too, so it's probably at least 45K. It might even be, it's probably higher than that, but it's probably at least 45K.
Well, and really just talk about fatigue, and it's gotten better since we've gone to polygon warnings in 2008, so it's gotten slightly better, but it's still multiple thousands, 10,000s a year, and it's just, you're asking somebody to do that so many times, and you're right, the fatigue just sets in, but there's another part of this that we're not even talking about, and let's go back to London, Kentucky for a second. Okay, you have a lot of elements coming together that are bad. You have a tornado that's nearly unsurvivable in some respects, especially if you're in a mobile home. Okay, it's going into the middle of the night, and I feel like we get in this little world of our own, and we think we're reaching the masses. And I've never been comfortable with every time I mash that button that people are actually getting my warning. Now, when it goes out to you guys, the communicators and the enterprise, so to speak, then I feel a lot better about it. But I've never been comfortable with an end user knowing anything about tags and things like that. Like, considerable, catastrophic, or even observed tornado. Because you think about it, it's part of what we do. If somebody out there is a smart enough end user to recognize the tags and know what they mean, then they probably are following already. It's the other people who casually follow, don't follow at all. Of those 20 fatalities in London in the mobile home park, how many of those 20 do you think actually even follow the weather day to day? You know, I go on surveys all the time and I talk to a lot of survivors. Kim, we went to the Beauregard survey, right? How many people, it's a Sunday afternoon, had no idea it was coming until it was there? No idea. So a lot of it maybe just luck, just the fact that, hey, this F4 part of the EF4 part of the storm didn't hit my house or my mobile home. So some of it, but time and time again, what we hear over and over is that we had no idea. It hit with no warning or whatever. I mean, it's the constant theme that we see over and over. So the real challenge for us is not necessarily maybe not even improving the warning program, even though I think we can do that. But the real challenge for us is to try to get more engagement from people who just could not care less. I mean, they're running around, they're in their phones all day. They don't know what's going on in the world around them. So that's the real challenge for us. And I think that's where you guys help because you're bringing you, Max, and the streamers, you're bringing in a whole new audience. I think that maybe before wasn't nearly as engaged, and now can you have a chance to reach more people, and that's really the key to saving lives, I think. So, rant over.
No, I'll rant. Hang on. Oh, by the way, glass of milk.
No broadcasting for you tonight.
No, I'm on hiatus. It's 2025, and we're having a conversation with viewers from around the world about the difference of watching morning. A couple events ago, up in our area, we had a Warren tornadic storm, rotating wall cloud, beautiful structure. It almost went, but I had 3 people to reach out to me, one in person, 2 by phone call, who were irately mad. And initially they were mad at us and then I had to explain we don't have anything to do with that. I couldn't hear the tornado warning sirens in my house. How do you expect me to be alerted? And I'm like, it's 2025. We have, phone apps, weather radios, and there's still a major disconnect amongst John Q. Public and weather safety to the point that, I mean, it astonishes me in a way that sorry.
It astonishes me that we
milk now.
It astonishes me that we can't figure out the difference between a watch and a warning. I really did not think that was that big of a problem. I mean, I've like occasionally posted like the taco warning versus taco watch thing. I mean, people understand that, I guess, but I can't believe that.
Go to your state fair in New Hampshire. Go to your state fair.
This siren mentality thing, it's real. I don't understand it. And you watch you watch a local TV station, they'll pitch to a reporter during a tornado situation. The first question, are you hearing any tornado sirens? What kind of question is that? What's that got to do with anything? You're not going to hear those things. That whole thing is horrible. And I understand they have a purpose. But I will tell you, if you go where real people are, like the State Fair in Kentucky, the Dollar General in Reform, Alabama, and talk with people, that's what they're going to get a tornado warning from a siren. That's what they listen for. That's all they know. And we somehow have to communicate that ain't it. And they're tired of these false warnings, and we've got work to do. And it's like everybody seems to think everything's fine. The warning process is great. It's never been better. Well, there's a lot of parts of the warning process that suck, that's no good. And we've got to work together to fix it, all of us. And it's going to take a Max, and it's going to take a Kevin, and a John, and everybody on the show here to get in here and let's get up our sleeves and fix it. But I will say what Max is doing and what Ben's doing, they are reaching people that have never been reached before. And nobody else wants to say this, but old school linear television is dying. It's over. It's a model. It's a product of a bygone era. And we have to move on to something. And so I'm hoping that maybe this conversation will get people involved in working together, not fighting and tearing apart things, but let's get together and fix it. We can get along. Can't we,
Well,
Bill? Can we get along?
we can educate people. As one of my friends says, this is not rocket surgery. You know, you can teach somebody to read a radar, and you can teach somebody to tell the difference between
But
a couple of
but
tags,
only if they want to.
but only
I
if they
think
want
there's
to,
I
James.
think there's a clamor for a passive alert system that requires very little energy to engage with. I don't know that YouTube streaming is the end goal of this, but if you go back to Beauregard, Alabama, the people that chose to be plugged into weather plugged themselves into weather information, whether it was YouTube, Facebook, or traditional media. But there are still tons of people that do not want to spend the neurons to engage in any kind of weather. And I don't know, I think WIA alerts are a giant step in that direction, but then people just pop right in and turn off their WIA alerts.
Well, it's the same way with
Yes.
it's the same way with
That's
NOAA Weather Radio.
Yeah.
They're our sponsor, and Midland's a great company. I love Midland, but at the same time, technologically, the radios are a generation behind. The 50-cent GPS should have been there a long time ago. Now, that's part of the Weather Service. That's part of the government. And I don't want to criticize them at this point because it's hard enough when you've lost 800 of your people in a hatchet job. Um, but I don't know. I think James said, how do we go about fixing this? This is what frustrates me. And Max, I have to agree. I think that I think you'd be surprised if you went out and said, "What's the difference in a watch and a warning?" I've run across college students. I sit there, and I'll tell you one thing: they didn't ever get out of my class in 36 years unless they knew it. There was at least some points involved in that
No,
before it was
I
all over.
bet. I also
Yeah,
I want to point out too with warnings and stuff like that. There's another thing too where like almost everybody has a smartphone nowadays, so like everybody can get alerts through their phone. One thing that I want to point out too is like there are people that turn off their emergency alerts because of Amber Alerts, and I'm pretty sure those are connected to weather alerts too,
Yep.
which is a huge problem. I mean, I've actually done that before, not for Amber Alerts, because when I'm live, I've actually been in tornado warnings before, so I want to make sure I'm not doxing
Yep.
myself. But that is a real thing though. When people get an Amber Alert, they're like, I don't want to be getting this because it happens at
Right.
most random times sometimes, and they're just not split up.
And the weather radios have that choice to get those out. But again, that's another selectable thing in weather radio, and that's complicating the weather radio. And one thing I love that Midland did, and they since did continue this model, is that it didn't even require you to set the channel. You could go and it would travel along with you and get the strongest signal. So you didn't even have to worry about that. The least you have to do with that weather radio, the better. And I think personally, I think weather radios ought to come with those Amber Alerts, Max, turned off. That's my gut feel. But
I want to. I feel like you guys are really onto something. The way that things have been done is a little bit coarse, and I think Oklahoma, James. I really feel like you're right in that this is just the beginning of an evolution, of a revolution.
Yep.
Max, you're providing a set of streaming information that what is starting to be possible is more bespoke services. And I think that that's really like I think that that's where things are going to go. I'm really hopeful for it personally. I would love if something could learn about me as a person. There's enough information about me that my phone has. They can target ads to me with really frightening clarity and accuracy. And I guarantee if there was some machine learning exercise done on the propensity to seek weather information at different times in an event life cycle, and pair that with some of your user data, that they could come up with a way to, hey, you're a mom of young children. You probably want to know at the 1 on forecast time scale, like, hey, there's been a watch issued, but now it's actually looking like your counties. It could be this time frame that there's storms. And it's not a warning, it's just a little, message that comes through, and that you would get updates and, a certain frequency. One of the reasons this doesn't exist yet is it's just impossible to create for, a generalized audience. But I think that it's entirely possible for it to exist in short order. And I would welcome that. I mean, if you're going to go so far as to do all this other stupid advertising junk, okay, great. Give me that bespoke weather information. Even me as a sophisticated user, then I can feel comforted. There's nothing that I would miss. The thing that I think is a really tough challenge when you guys are talking about how do we fix all of this. Setting AI and machine learning aside, so there's a positive that could happen theoretically, but there's also this negative of what's going on in society writ large. James Spann, you were talking about, you don't even know where this came from, but people in your viewing area reaching out to you to confirm, is there going to be severe weather? And I just couldn't help but think, I'm so grateful they have you then they trust you enough to confirm that with. We're to a point now where a lot of what is true is very hard to discern. And that's especially true of something like a forecast, which hasn't even happened yet. It's all there's an array of opinions that can be staked about the future. Man, it is I it is so easy to make stuff up and to fake stuff. I don't know how people are even going to have a basis once linear television does die. If that really happens the way you're saying, I think you all are trusted because you're present and people have relied on you repeatedly before the social media era existed. But after some time goes by, and if there is an attrition in linear television, I don't know what people are going to do. And I just hope that Max, and Ben, I don't know if you guys are thinking about this. How can you build that level of trust and keep out the voices of confusion? I think that's going to be a really big, big problem going forward. And I really hope that you're part of the solution. And Kevin Law is looking at you. I really hope that what you're hoping to do with an IWT to bring all of our digital folks into the fold is going to help to shore up that system of trust, because otherwise this could easily disintegrate, in my view.
We have to do it, and I'll tell you why. Because James Spann and I just went to Mississippi State a few months ago and talked to the students there, and there was probably 120 students, and 100% of them. Mississippi State's traditionally been a big broadcast school, and 100% of those students came up to James and I afterwards and wanted to talk. And the thing they want to talk about is starting their own digital platform. All of them. There was not a mention about linear television or going into that business. So they're going to school now to jump into the digital meteorology world, which is fine and great. But you're getting ready over the next decade, you're going to have an explosion of this, right? I mean, it's going to be everywhere. And you've got names out there that you can trust, of course. And the people who've been doing it, Max has been doing it for a while or will have been by that point. But you're going to have people everywhere, and you're going to have message confusion, right? Because there's no way to get out in front of it. So you're right. And what we need to do at least is to sit down and have this conversation and bring digital meteorologists into the IWT structure. And they need to understand, let's just try to get on the same page with messaging and how we're going to work these events, and that way, hopefully there'll be some less confusion on the back end, because these users are depending on us. And so I say we collectively, we're the only lifeline they have in a lot of cases, especially with some of these moderate and high risks that we have. So you're right. Hopefully we can get in front of this, and we can get the right people on board, and we can start to bring everybody into the fold before this explosion happens. And I think we might have a chance of doing that. So appreciate your help on it for sure.
Yeah, so Max, are you going to be able to participate in the IWT that's coming up at the NWA in Huntsville in September?
I think so, unless there's like a hurricane. I should be there.
Oh, that's true. That's a bad season for hurricanes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
John Gordon, you're going where I want to go next, so you take it.
Okay, so we're all bragging on you, Max, because you have to innovate to move forward. A good wide receiver knows where the ball is before it's thrown. What's your future? Where are you going? what's the next big thing that will wow us like Steve Jobs did with all the Apple products? Where are you going and what you going to do?
Yeah, so I mean, there's many ideas that I have for future stuff. One of the biggest things is also starting a 501c, possibly a nonprofit of some sort, to help either with weather, or even we have an idea too about making a 501c to get radar trucks. I think that would actually be super helpful if those are available for, every National Weather Service office in addition to TV stations and everybody else. Like that would be, I think, huge, especially for big events that we don't have great radar coverage in, because as you all know, there are many big radar holes in the United States. So I think that'd be a really big help. Another thing is just keep doing what we're already doing and just continue to expand what we have. And I think the other thing is too, just finding more ways to relay weather information to people, whether that's through social media, whether that's making a weather app, something along those lines. Like those are all things that we are considering here over the next, 6, 12 months, and just kind of, expanding what we already have. So.
And Max, talk about what advice you'd give all those students that are at Mississippi State and other colleges and younger people that are coming along. I mean, you caught lightning in a bottle here, with your incredible style and professionalism and the way you do things, and you came along at the right time. Obviously that's going to become a very crowded space very quickly. What's your advice to these young people so that there is room for them at the table?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities in the weather space. I have multiple friends that have graduated, obviously, in my class that have also been able to already get interviews, and some of them are already getting jobs as well. And on top of that, there are a lot of opportunities in the weather space. It's not just broadcast. I mean, broadcast obviously is one big thing. If you want to go into broadcast, there's plenty of spots on TV and such that you can go into. You could also start your own brand on, YouTube or, Facebook, whatever it might be, on social media, which is obviously not easy to sustain. I don't even know how I got here, to be honest. Like it was literally just based off passion. Like I've always just been passionate about what I've done. So I somehow got to this position, which I'd never thought I would be in a million years, but here we are. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities out there. The private sector has been booming in weather. I mean, there's a lot of people I know that are going into like certain like things weather-wise. Like I know somebody like applied to be a meteorologist at like Disney World, for example. There's also other things like, there's a bunch of like windmills and stuff out in Texas. They need meteorologists for certain stuff there too. Insurance, reinsurance, that sort of stuff. So there's plenty of opportunities out there. If you go into meteorology, like I don't think there's going to be a shortage of jobs. Obviously, the broadcast sector has gotten a little bit more thin recently, with TV kind of, I would say dying out a little bit with, weather coverage and in general, just news in general, just not as popular as it once was, I think, because of social media. But there's definitely still something there. And even if you want to go on TV, I know friends that are getting mid-level, TV market jobs still, and getting paid pretty well at TV markets. So I don't think there's really any shortage of jobs. I think there is a perception of that just from what people have heard on social media or from news articles and stuff. But I honestly think there's plenty of opportunities out there for any meteorologist.
Well, you have to differentiate yourself, and that's the most important thing, and you've done that very well. James A., you've got an important question.
Hey, Max, we talked a little bit about watch warning, perspective, knowledge, stuff like that. Can you tell, are there any regional differences in the comments and the weather literacy that you get through those comments? Are Oklahoma people and Alabama people just amateur meteorologists that know everything already? Or how does that work? Have you noticed?
I'm gonna be honest. I've never. I probably have gotten it. I guess I've never seen it. I've never seen anybody say I don't know what a watch or a warning is, or at least know the difference. Like I might be the only one, but I've never seen anything like that. I've seen people ask like, what is a derecho, or what is a outflow boundary, that sort of stuff. But like, yeah, I've never had like a comment like that, which is weird. I feel like maybe I have, maybe I just haven't seen it. But
is there a difference around the country in people that already know what derecho is, or outflow boundary, or hook echo, or couplet, or something like that, versus those that don't?
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely a much better understanding. I mean, when I covered Hurricane Milton in Florida, back when we had a bunch of tornado warnings in Florida, there were, a bunch, and a lot of people didn't know what was even going on, because like most people in Florida, like the tornado warnings, there are tornadoes, in Florida. It's just not super frequent. And since we had, 20 tornado warnings at a given time, nobody knew what was going on, it seemed like. So there's definitely a difference between that and being in like Texas or Oklahoma, where you get tornado warnings basically at any month out of the year. Obviously, it peaks in the spring, but yeah, there's definitely a difference across the board board. Like if you're in New Hampshire, even like New Hampshire hardly ever sees tornado warnings. So people are caught off guard. They don't know what a couplet is on radar. They might not know what an outflow boundary is because they don't usually watch weather that's related to severe weather. They're usually watching weather when there's snow falling. So there's definitely a difference geography wise across the country. But yeah.
So Max, how do you handle the trolls and the haters and all those folks?
I don't know, to be honest, I don't have enough time to even look at comments and stuff about trolls and stuff anymore. So I guess that's probably a better thing. But no, I don't get a whole lot of like hate comments. I think most of the time everybody's pretty nice, I guess. I mean, there are occasional, situations where I'll get a nasty email or something, but what are you going to do? Like, you can't please everybody. I mean, if you have, well, I mean, I have 1.25 million subscribers on YouTube now. And then on top of that, I have hundreds of thousands of other followers on other platforms. Like, there's going to be somebody that does not like you. It goes in any space. It doesn't have to just be weather. You could be a gamer. You could be a, whatever else, maybe a music artist, and somebody's not going to like you. Like, it's just going to happen everywhere. So.
That's right. That's James A's life. That's exactly right. But I think I was watching when you hit 100,000, Max. I may be wrong. I think I was watching when you hit 100,000 and I was amazed. And then I turned around and you hit 1 million. I mean, within a fairly short period of time. And that was very, very impressive. So I want to be a fanboy for just a second. Most intense events you've covered to this point.
The most intense had to have been, what day was it? It was the, I think it was March 5th, March 14th. It was the moderate risk that we had across the Ozarks and, Mississippi River Valley. That was the most intense because it was impossible to cover all the warnings we had. We had 20, I think we peaked at 30 tornado warnings. And then on top of that, we had like 35, 40 severe warnings at the same time. I think it's the most warnings I've ever been live for collectively combined. So that was definitely the most intense. It's almost impossible to cover that many mornings by yourself. Like it's just not possible. And, but even back in mid-March, I did not have anybody helping me. It was just me still. If you guys don't know who Riley is, like he's an assistant. He came in mid-April, so that's more recent. But if Riley were there for that day, I think there would have been a lot more like good stuff that would have come out of that event when we had like 60, 70 warnings. We would have been able to really split up radar analysis a lot more. But when it's just me looking at everything, it's definitely very difficult. So, but yeah, I think that was definitely the most intense day.
It really appears that the assistants, Riley, obviously, not really an assistant, but another analyst on your team, and Ryan has, Andy Hill, add a lot to the process because you can't see everything all at once.
Yeah, no, 100%. They add a lot of value. I mean, I didn't realize how much value would have been added until I added them to the team back in mid-April. Like we've been, in my opinion, like 3 times better than what we were before mid-April. Like the amount of improvement that has happened recently has been substantial. And I've noticed it. Like I'm on live streams, like I don't see something and he points it out. Like he comes on for like 5-10 seconds. So yeah.
Yeah, we did a live stream, Jen, wasn't it, on the 14th of March? And
we did.
And that extra set of eyes. John Gordon was on there.
He was.
I learned a new term. I used it all the time now. Hit the deck. Hit the deck. That's our new term. But talk about how you handle these long events, Max. How do you stay, refreshed and focused? And when you have multi-day events, how do you deal with the fatigue?
Yeah, this year has been interesting because last year it was pretty much a live stream. It felt like every day for me. I mean, I went live for basically every weather event, whether it was a slight risk or even sometimes marginal threats if they at least had some level of a tornado threat. So last year was a big grind. This year, I feel like everything's just been, 5, 6, 7 day stretches like what we just had. It was like a 6-day stretch. I was live 5 of the last 6 days, not including today. And every single stretch, it's been like 5 or 6 days. And then we get like a week or 2 break. And it's really weird because it's like, what am I doing for the next week? Am I just making videos? Like, when am I going live next? So, and apparently, I just had Riley send this to me, but apparently I've been live for 590 hours so far this year, which is a total of 25 days. So, and that's, through June 9th, which I think last year was, or actually, no, that was last year. Sorry, that was last year. But even then, like, that's basically an entire month of the entire year that I was live. This year will probably not be far from that. So, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I always look forward to when you're there. That's for sure. So, one last question. You mentioned, you get a lot of messages that people, attributed their knowledge of a storm to you. What's the most rewarding message you ever got from one of your viewers?
I think the most rewarding ones is when I actually feel like I made an impact. Because like during streams, you can't really look at chat. Like I can sometimes, but like it's usually at the very end of streams when there's no warnings left that are at least tornado warning wise, when there's no tornado warnings left, or even post stream when I get emails or messages. Like when I'm able to actually read those, after the event, those are really rewarding when there's actually a difference being felt and a difference being made to somebody's life. Because honestly, I never realized that during streams. I only realized that after the fact when I actually see people saying that.
So let me ask you a question, Max. Do you get along with Ryan Hall?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Last year we were pretty close. This year, not so much, but yeah, we
Okay,
were
I
kind of
just
close last year. But yeah, it's just been this year. It's been just we're going kind of two different paths. I guess that's kind of the moral of the story right now. And I didn't even know, for the record, when I started YouTube, I didn't even know who he was. So like I did Facebook obviously back in 2020, and then I went to YouTube. I had no clue anybody that was doing YouTube like weather. The only weather I ever saw on YouTube was like news stations. So yeah.
Because I'll look at the weather Twitter stuff, and these chasers are always fighting each other. They're cussing at each other and threatening each other. And so you guys don't do that, do you?
No. We're not on like bad terms or anything. It's just like, we do our own thing. Like that's just how like I guess the YouTube space works right now. We're just kind of doing our own thing.
Yeah, and again, it's just weird to me how weather gets. Some of the weather folks, they just like to fight all the time, and that's just strange. I see that a lot with the chaser community. So, but again, and we'll give you a chance to plug everything here in a minute, Max. But what you're doing, a lot of the old school television, meteorologists, people of my generation, they're all offended by what you do in Ryan Hall. Well, forget it. What you're doing is right. And instead of this jealousy nonsense, here's an idea. Maybe learn something from these guys. You're doing it right. So, just on
Same
behalf of
team.
the old farts, if anybody comes after you that's in my generation, you tell them to see me. All right? I'll. No, I got your back. All right. I know a couple of guys named Moose and Rocco. So, having said that, we've got to take a very quick break. And Max, you can hang with us. We're going to do picks of the week here in a minute. We got to hear from Tony Rice and This Week in Astronomy. We have Jen's This Week in Tornado History. We'll do some email. We will do picks of the week and more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Asteroid 2024 YR4 is back in the news with a slightly increased forecasted probability of impact. This asteroid was discovered back in December of 2024, and observations with the James Webb Space Telescope and other assets found it to be about the size of a 15-story building. That's slightly bigger than was originally measured. Even more surprising is this asteroid is shaped more like a hockey puck than the usual potato shape, and that might indicate that it came from the main asteroid belt. Back in February, as its orbit was just being calculated, that risk of Earth impact was as high as 3%. That puts it at level 3 in the Torino Impact Hazard Scale, smack dab in the meriting attention from astronomers zone, but well below the threatening or certain collision zone. You can think of this hazard scale as something like the Fujita scale, but for asteroids. The very next day after that 3% Earth impact risk was published, the Very Large Telescope, which is part of the European Southern Observatory, cut the risk in half. Fast forward to today, and even though it's forecasted to come within 1.5 lunar distances, that risk is down to 0.001% chance of Earth impact in December of 2032. And that drops it to near zero on that Torino scale. So what changed? The short answer is more observations mean more data, which can improve those forecasts. Think of the task like this: putting together a jigsaw puzzle without the aid of the picture on the box. One piece tells us pretty much nothing, but as we add more pieces, the clearer the picture becomes. But the interesting thing is, as that data has flown in, it put a new body at risk: the Moon. Based on data from the Webb Space Telescope as well as ground-based observatories, the risk of lunar impact is up from 3.8% to 4.3%. Even though the rock is in the neighborhood of 60 meters in diameter, that's not enough to alter the orbit. Data will continue to come in and forecasts will continue to improve. The real test will be in December of 2028 when the asteroid's orbit brings it back near Earth, still 22 lunar distances away though. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, it is the deadliest and most destructive tornado to ever hit the New England area. The Worcester, Massachusetts F4 tornado occurred during the mid-afternoon time of June 9th, 1953. The destruction was overwhelming. Per Thomas Grisoulis, insignificant tornadoes, an F5 rating could have been given to this event. Quote, many of the houses that were nearly leveled were 2 or 3-story tenement buildings built with dozens of interior walls, which would add considerable structural strength. The Worcester tornado was the final event in a 3-day outbreak. Per a blog article from Day in Weather History, quote, severe storms began on June 7th over the Central Plains before spreading into Michigan and Ohio on the 8th. A total of 46 tornadoes occurred over the 3-day period, including a powerful F5 tornado in Flint, Michigan on the 8th. Per the National Weather Service, the first ever tornado warning in New England was issued on this day. Debris from this tornado was found in the Boston area and on Cape Cod, which is over 100 miles away. 94 people were killed along the 34.9-mile path. Over 1,200 were injured. Read more about this event at tornadotalk.com.
All right, time to dig and dive into the email inbox to see what's there.
All right, get ready. We're bringing this up for the third time. I'm bringing up this email. We've got a great group of folks here to talk about this. We're going to talk about parking under an overpass. This email came in from Steve Holmes, and he writes, with all due respect to the watches and warnings problem, here is the greater threat. And it's an article from ksdk.com. And this is from several weeks ago, where folks were in Missouri with the St. Louis tornado getting and deciding we're going to stay under the overpass. And the title of the article, Missouri drivers put countless lives at risk by parking under I-170 overpass during a tornado. And in part, the article said tornado sirens blared, high winds gusted, downpours fell on the drivers after they were involuntarily forced into a miles-long traffic backup, while deadly severe storms swept through the St. Louis region. The cause of the backup was a handful of drivers who decided to park underneath the overpass at Scudder Avenue in a bid to protect their vehicles from storm damage. Let's talk about it, because Kim saw that article and she's like, what in the world's happening? And it's just, it's been going on for a really long time, and I'm not even sure how to begin the conversation, but how do we communicate this? This is not a good idea.
My thing all along is I've tried to think if this thing was regional or something. And of course, Jen, you bring up that case in that article, that's St. Louis from the event recently. But a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area during severe weather, and there was a threat of hail, and here we go. And I don't know if people are just lost their brains. I just don't know what they're thinking. If they're the only thing on the face of the earth that makes any difference, and the family, the 4 cars behind them, they've created a problem for those people, for the 4 people in that vehicle. I just don't understand it. And James in Tulsa, I assume it's an issue up there as well. And for an insurance to protect your vehicle, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, John, talk about what you just wrote in the chat.
All right, I could be wrong, but this all really started during the Andover outbreak. Max, you were not born. But anyway, during the Andover outbreak, this TV crew, I don't know, James A., you know where they were from, wherever they were from, was on the turnpike. They had nowhere to go, and they see this overpass out in the middle of nowhere. They go to the overpass. Most overpasses today in Max's generation are 2 bricks and a bridge. This one had one where you could go way back in and hide like little kids. And that's where it started. This needs to stop. Howie Bluestein and Chuck Doswell told me at a talk where people were maimed to death on May 3rd, 99 in Norman, because they went under the darn overpass. And you can imagine how bad that F5 was in that overpass.
Well, wasn't in that overpass case in Norman, wasn't there a family with 2 children that were swept away by the wind current underneath that bridge and found a mile away? Deceased.
Yeah, the one in Moore on I-35, which has been replaced with a highway widening. There is a picture that Rick, if he was here, would know where that is. I think I saw it on their webpage, on their story about this event. It is a mud silhouette of somebody that sought shelter under the Bridge Creek overpass, which is southwest of Moore. And where they were is white on the bridge abutment, and there's just mud and debris caked in the shape of them around. And they were seriously injured. But yeah, the video was from KSNW. They were coming back from a state capitol story in Topeka back to Wichita when all that happened. But yeah, it did no good, and boy did it get play.
But I mean, I'm seeing it in cases down here, protection of hail, but then and it runs the gamut, and you sit there and look at 5 miles backed up beyond that, all exposed to every element, and there's damn little choice at that point. If you're back there, there's no choice. Your fate. You better hope there ain't anything coming down that interstate at you.
The power of media.
Yep.
And the responsibility that we all have, be it from YouTube to Facebook to legacy television. You have a voice and you have influence. And just in the sense of that, so many years ago, make sure what you say is right. Davy Crockett once said, be sure you're right, then go ahead. And I think that very much applies to what we have to do in our community and not send people under bridges.
Yep.
Hey, well, let me ask you and Max a question, Ben, you and Max both, because you speak to a large audience, especially a large audience that is in mobile and manufactured housing. One thing I always struggle with is our rules, and we talk about if you're in a vehicle, get out and lay in a ditch. Well, what are your expectations for people who are in manufactured housing? What are you telling them to do? Are they supposed to go somewhere? Are they supposed to go outside? Because what I've noticed is that people have talked to me about this, and there's confusing messages. So they want you to go somewhere to a site-built place. Well, if they have transportation to do that, you're also saying don't get in the car because it's a death trap. So what do we do with those types of situations where, especially if it's maybe we didn't have a watch, maybe we went right to the warning phase, and you've got people in manufacturing. Are you honestly expecting them to get out of their safe place and lay in a ditch, or what are you expecting them to do?
Well, manufactured housing, Kevin's another thing, and this is where we'll get the lawyers involved probably. But the bottom line is manufactured housing doesn't want to talk about what people do in severe weather in a manufactured housing. They don't want to deal with the fact that if that building is not secured to some degree, that they're just manufactured housing, as James points out so many times, those are fine houses 99.9% of the time. You got a tornado coming over the hill a mile away, you want to get the heck out. But one thing we found before in our business is that manufactured housing people they don't want to deal with the severe weather topic. They do not want to deal with it.
May 8th of last year, we were able to give about a 8.5, 9 minute heads up on a tornado warned storm entering the area. And long story short, the family left that home. They heeded that warning with, by that time, 5 minutes. And the family came back, and their mobile home was wrapped around 3 different trees. It was hit by an EF3 tornado that was on the ground for, I think, 3, 4, 5 miles, something like that, through southern Giles County. And when they drove back up, the rescue squad was looking for their bodies and turned around and said, "Hey, you're alive. We thought you were in that mobile home." And the reply was, "No, the bald guys on Facebook told us to get out." But it worked. At the end of the day, they're alive today. And it's Fred Gossage's credit to that for making that call, and Chase Wilson for tracking that thing. But at the end of the day, we, you know, we're just trying to make a difference with that. And they heeded that. Is that something that happens all the time, every time? No. But at least in that one case, they're alive today because of advanced warning and them leaving.
Kim, do you have any comments?
It's a hard problem. There's a couple, hard problems in what you guys are talking about with the driving thing. Well, my suspicion, again, not something that has been studied in great depth to understand the attitudes, beliefs, whatever that go into this behavior, but I would, I doubt that people are thinking about this that hard. I think they have blinders on. I think that they're just reacting, and it's instinct. And most people who are in that situation have never been in that situation before, and they're just doing what we instinctually do as humans: get to a shelter. Well, the thing that looks like a shelter on the road is this overpass. We know as people who understand physics that it's not at all a shelter, and we also, as people who care about emergency management, have this high level perspective of we need to keep the flow through going so anyone has any chance of escape and not just being trapped. I don't know that that problem gets resolved with anything but legislation and very, very, very stern penalties if you are, stationary under an overpass. If you're the lead of that, and having traffic cameras installed that capture the license plates of those folks and doing some really serious enforcement. Unfortunately, I think that might be the only thing that really helps that problem, because I don't think that it's something that in the public consciousness is experienced frequently enough, and that there's enough discussed about to mitigate against it, unless people know, like, oh, I could have really bad things happen if I stop on the highway. That should be common sense, but like, that would help. To the piece about oh goodness, mobile homes. That's just really hard. I'm glad that you're doing some targeted communication. That's some of the best stuff I think that can happen. Like you said in their discussion, everybody, it can be great housing a lot of the time. I built a lot of empathy when I came out to Alabama to look at the Lee County tornado in 2019. And that event happened in the wake of several of these slight risk days that were just really conditional. And I chatted with somebody who had lost their home, and they were talking about how they knew they weren't supposed to be in it, and they had just expired their welcome at like they'd gone to like their mother's house or something, in all the previous events in the days or week or two leading up to this. And they were just like, oh, can I do this again? And in that case, it's one of those things of, our enemy isn't necessarily these people. Our enemy is the fact that this is hard. And so, sometimes we're going to face limitations, and people aren't going to be able to or willing to do these extraordinary actions. But if you can be advising just the right thing and giving people enough time and giving them the options, you are doing what I think is the best that you can do. And that's the important thing, is just recognizing where you've done everything that you can do.
And I think to tie back to manufactured homes as well, I think one of the biggest things is communicating escape routes too for those that are in mobile homes, because there are, tons of people that are in mobile homes, and sometimes they don't have any like notice or very little notice that there might be a tornado about to hit. And that's one of those things, like in the moment, you got to, where you're going to go. Like if you have a storm shelter, obviously that's where you're going. But in a mobile home, most people don't have that option, or they don't have that luxury to keep them safe. And that's why sometimes it's better to just run into a ditch. I mean, that's, we say it all the time, but like that's sometimes the only good option, because, if you get hit directly by a tornado in a mobile home, you're probably not going to live. Like it's just, I've seen EF1 tornadoes literally level, mobile homes, and they're not even like that large. They're usually like these like little small tornadoes. Like it's nothing that looks that crazy, but for a mobile home, they just get completely leveled and there's no safe place. Like you're lucky if you live in a mobile home from a tornado. So I think one of the biggest things is having escape routes. And that's also another thing, like with big days, like when we have moderate or high risks of severe weather, you kind of have to communicate that message ahead of time. Like if you're at a mobile home, you might want to go to a sturdy structure for the day, or, you know, wherever a safe place is. You have friends or family that are in a, you know, a 2-story building with a basement, like go there instead of being in a mobile home for the day. Like that's just what you have to do ahead of time. But sometimes there isn't that notice. Sometimes it's a low end day, and sometimes you get a tornado, you know, out of nowhere and it's a surprise. So yeah.
And let me say this too, and I'm going to defend this because especially a lot of the new manufactured homes are well built. They're not wrong about that.
Yeah.
A lot of them are more well built than site built homes now, with all the glue and epoxy and things that they use. It's always the anchoring. Always the anchoring will get you every time. And they're nice homes. They're well built, and I've seen those things fly intact like a spaceship. It's when they land, it's all, I mean, that's the horrible part. And it's all comes down to the anchoring. And for whatever reason, they wash their hands of the anchoring part of this, and they've got to be more involved. And we've got to have more regulation on the anchoring part of this. That is what's going to save people's lives, because wind engineers will show you, especially in the tier zones that are in the hurricane zones where they're anchored properly, they'll survive very easily. Winds that are EF1, sometimes even EF2, they'll survive very easily, but they have to be anchored very well. So that's always the key to it.
Back to the overpass thing real quick to button up that. Every car that I'm aware of has a radio in it. Now, as the radio broadcaster in the room here, I will say that it would be great if we could give better information on radio, but radio coverage has changed so drastically over the past 5-10 years. It's so different than it used to be. It's not as hyper local. Some stations still do it very well with local, but it's really, you know, this, I think even if we were able to give better real-time radio, that wouldn't help with this issue with the overpasses. It almost becomes a traffic issue, but then it really does, it come down to the decisions that people are making, because they're like, my car is getting pelted with hail. I need to get covered under something. I do wish that we had better, and maybe with some of the streaming that Max is doing and Ben, that we could get to the point where their streams can be played in an audio way. You know, I was really not supposed to be playing our YouTube in the car, you know, but I think we probably do play the YouTube so we can hear it. Shouldn't be watching it, but we can at least hear it. We need to have an audio version so we can hear it, but folks are not turning on the radio because they're not going to hear much when it comes to live severe weather coverage, in my opinion, as the radio broadcaster.
I see Ben thinking now at this point. I'm seeing this.
Yeah.
No, there's a collective project that I'm working on that we're going to solve that, and it will be solved very soon.
Okay. I'm very interested.
What kind of a tease? What kind of a tease is that?
I know what's going on here. I'm liking it. We're going to have you back to talk about this in the future. Very interesting. Thank you guys for covering that. I do want to bring up one more email that came in. This is from Colin, and his perspective on this is, it seems that in the weather community, the focus is people are obsessed with tornadoes, and that is the hyper focus versus flooding and heat and waves and other severe weather disasters. You know, probably behind tornadoes, maybe hurricanes are next, but tornadoes. And he just was like, why is that? Why is the weather community so obsessed with tornadoes? And I just wanted to see if anybody had any thoughts.
I do, but I bet Kim does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go for it.
It's dread event. Flash flooding is rising water. Tornadoes are dread event. It is crashing wind that goes from 0 to 180 in 2 seconds. And it is dramatic. And we see it in general population studies of what people fear. And dread events outscores much more likely things. We're more scared of dying in a plane crash than we are having heart disease or cancer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you sit there but then you look at the global numbers for this thing called heat. I want some people to see someone, which I haven't seen, but I've been party to cases in Austin. We've had people rolled into the ERs in Austin with anal body temperatures of 108, 109. They died 25 minutes later in the emergency room. People do not understand that. They don't.
But one or two at a time,
Yeah.
not catching headlines.
Nope, it doesn't. But number one killer on the face of the earth, heat.
Anybody, Kim, did you want to say anything about tornadoes?
Nope. That is unsurprisingly, this is exactly what I would say. If you're interested in the nerdy term to look up for it, it's called the psychometric paradigm of risk perception. Paul Slovic and sort of founded the idea. But different threats have different. They're imbued with different attributes that people fear more than others. So if something is, you view it to be more uncontrollable or more, catastrophic in its potential effects, or it's more unknown to science, like mysterious. Those things are much more feared than things that are banal, like water. You experience water in your day-to-day life, and we in society, this is a lot of there's been a lot of study about how society chooses to manage all of its risks. Where do we put all of our money? And it's definitely not through actuarial practice. It's very much guided by what is it that at a gut level people just fear and do not want to deal with. We've talked about this actually at the Severe Storms Lab. We recognize that all of the investment that's gone on in severe weather, we're very, very fortunate to have all of that investment, and it is in large part because people do not want to die in tornadoes.
Yeah, very
Well,
good. Thanks, everybody. Go ahead.
Also, look at El Reno Day, where every death in that El Reno tornado flash flood event was a flood death, except professional chasers.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Throughout the big April 2011 event, throw those out. So you start off with supercells, Max. You transition to linear convection, squall line, overrunning, and it always ends as flash flooding. Always. In the Mid-South, the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley. That's how it always goes. What's the killer? You have one usually killer tornado. We don't want any of that, right? But what's the overarching, James? What is it? It is flash flooding. It's not even close. And Troy also mentioned heat. But tornadoes, just get the story.
Well, tornadoes are sexy, John. I mean, it's the bottom line. They sell, they're sexy.
That's right.
From a TV standpoint,
they get
the video of a
clicks
tornado.
And clicks, they get views, they get engagement, where you talk about it's like Saturday. We had a thunderstorm complex in MCS, not a derecho, but it came through North Alabama, knocked down thousands of trees. It could have killed some people. It was horrible. And but all people wanted to talk about was tornadoes. They don't want to listen to severe thunderstorm warnings or straight line winds. It's just some kind of thing. But anyway, having said that, we got to move on. Jen, I'm sorry. Anything else from your point here?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. All right, so let's quickly go to picks of the week. This is where everybody's going to go around the horn, share something that is cool and weather related. Mine, a TV station in Abilene, KTXS, had part of the roof peeled back. Did you guys see that?
Yep.
Right over the weather office. This was last night, and they're lucky that nobody was injured. But my pick of the week, it's a link to a little piece and photographs of a pretty scary moment for a television weather crew in Abilene, Texas. But Troy, let's go out to Guam. Well, by the way, what's the local time there? What time is it?
Let's see. It's coming up on 12 noon on Tuesday.
I'm about to say, what day is it? We know it's Tuesday, so it's
the 10th, I think. Yeah.
All right. Well, any pick for us this week?
I don't have one. Foghorn, I'd love to hear it from across the ocean.
Oh, man. Foghorn Across the Ocean. That's a great show title. All right, James, ate a lot. What's your pick of the week? No 9 o'clock news, so you've got some time here, so go.
I'll have you know the 9 o'clock news goes on whether I'm there or not. So my pick of the week, I was in for our morning show with meteorologist Laura Mock Thursday morning doing tag team coverage of QLCS Tornado Fest. And I just wanted to take my hat off to Laura, who is a cancer survivor and is back at full speed and so incredibly inspirational. So I just wanted to have that uplifting note for my pick of the week. She's been wonderful through this entire thing.
Excellent. Good deal. All the picks will be up on weatherbrains.com. Kim, what's your pick of the week? Commissioner, go.
Yeah, my pick of the week is a bit of legislation that was introduced in the House. It was introduced by a pair of congressmen named Flood, Representative Flood, I think from Nebraska, which is amazing, and Eric Sorensen, our meteorologist in Congress. So yay! And this legislation is to make weather service employees part of our public safety infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Right. If that had occurred, then they'd be exempt from some of the things that are going on. So that was introduced in the House. There's a companion bill, I understand, that's also bipartisan. I should mention that was bipartisan in the House. It's also bipartisan in the Senate. So fingers crossed, that is all extremely excellent signs of maybe some tides turning in a positive direction for the Weather Service.
And positive is good. All right, excellent. Okay, John Gordon in an undisclosed location. What's your pick of the week?
Okay, James. Yeah, so on the Weather Network today, they showed a black iceberg. Look it up, a rare black iceberg. So that got me to thinking to an amazing site. You should promote it, Max Velocity. It is the icebergfinder.com. They track all the icebergs across the Atlantic. People take photos, pilots, boats, people out in a boat on Iceberg Alley. So check that out and look up the black iceberg. I was skeptical, James A., but I looked it up and it looks legit.
If John says it's true, we believe it's true. All right, that's a great pick. All right, Jen, go. What you got?
So we got an email today from our friend Frank Waugh at Cake in Wichita. And because I'm the email officer, I get first dibs on any picks that come in. And I am picking his documentary that he just released called Echoes of the Storm. And it's called Voices of Udall. So it's looking back at the Udall, Kansas tornado at 70th anniversary. I started watching it today, and it's very good. It's spooky, actually. And it reminds me of kind of like an Unsolved Mysteries type of documentary. I think we should have Frank on to talk about this. He has survivor stories and a lot of just different audio from that and telling the story of what happened that day. And so it's very good. So that's my pick of the week.
Excellent. Again, all these picks will be on the website, weatherbrains.com. Okay, Ben, it's your turn. What is a pick of the week?
Pick of the week. I just want to give a bit of gratitude to my coworkers who have been unwavering in their long hours and overnights that they've done here the past few days and in weeks of severe weather coverage. I appreciate all of them, and they are all a true blessing. And that's my pick. And to be part of this wonderful community and to hang out with him and all of you tonight too.
You are always welcome.
Outstanding.
And follow Chase Wilson on X because he is remarkably good at radar.
At Dual Doppler.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a true radar guy. Okay, Max, we've stalled long enough. Give us a pick of the week, something cool.
I think the craziest thing that happened actually was yesterday. We had a 119 mile per hour microburst back over just to the west of Abilene. I think it was northeast of Midland. So I honestly didn't even know that happened yesterday. Like, we didn't see it on radar. It was, I think, warned for 2-inch hail and 70 mile per hour winds when it happened. So that's the one thing that stuck out to me this week.
It's enough to ruin your day for sure. All right, Bill Murray, go. Your turn.
Yeah, James, I'm gonna take the foghorn for my pick. I'm just Too
Hey, hey,
tired to
hey,
even
hey.
come up with one. But I do have some good guests that are coming up, and we have a special Thursday show this week. So we'll get together Thursday night at 7 o'clock, making sure the host still remembers that. But we'll have Jeff Givens, the Durango weather guy, talk to him today. So that's going to be a fun show too. And he'll be with us. We're going to have a bunch of friends from the NWA on the 23rd, and including Kendra Kent, Matt Belcher, bunch of folks on that night. About as many folks as we can fit on Zoom. John's got the June 30th show with a German meteorologist, which I'm really looking forward to. And then Melissa Marcelloni will join us on July 7th. And another the fabulous young YouTubers, Evan Freiberger will join us on the 24th. And what else have we added? Kevin and I added Randy Bowers today. We got a bunch of great shows coming up. We have a special pre-show for that NWA IWT on Monday the 25th. We'll actually do 2 shows that day, so that's going to be fun. And Dr. Paris Paradakis, who is behind the AI model Aurora, is going to join us on August 18th. So I hope we'll have, maybe we can sneak Dr. Neil Jacobs in some glasses and a funny beard or something, and have him ask some great questions that night. But James, that's just a few of the great guests that are coming up on WeatherBrains. Many thanks to Kevin Laws tonight for getting Max, and Max, many thanks to you for taking time out of your busy schedule on a night when you could have been resting to join us.
No, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys having me on.
And I've saved Kevin for last because Kevin comes up with some really good picks. So Kevin, shine away. Go.
Well, I can't beat. I've been wondering for the last few weeks what John Gordon's doing with his retirement. I didn't know he's watching icebergs. What a fun thing that sounds like to do. But I was thinking about it, and school is out, and we didn't talk about this other weather killer that's out there that looms, and it always looms on the Gulf Coast where we are, and that's the rip currents. Man, they are
rip currents.
People just
we lost Kevin, a dad that was trying to save his child from drowning in Gulf County, Florida, yesterday. It's bad. Yeah.
Yeah, and a dear friend of the show and all of ours for the most part, Bill LaPinta, if he can get swept in rip current, anybody can, because he knew about them, and so it just is a very eye-opening thing. But what we notice is that most people who die are usually from out of state. They a lot of snowbirds come down and to the Gulf Coast, and they just don't understand the flag system, and they don't pay any attention. So we've got to do a better job with that, and that's a very preventable thing, I think. So anyway, that's my pick, the NWS Rip Current webpage, safety webpage. So thank you.
It's a critical issue, and we need to talk about it more. I totally agree, and that's a great pick. Okay, Max, I know you got 10 million followers, but plug your YouTube channel here, so you might pick up 1 or 2 more. Go.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, Max Velocity WX, or just look at Max Velocity. We're on Facebook and Twitter at Max Velocity WX, and yeah, that's basically it.
Now, when you go live, do you simulcast on YouTube and Facebook, or is it YouTube only?
No, it's only YouTube right now. We've thought about doing simulcasting, but it's right now just YouTube.
Okay. I do them both, and I get a gazillion times more people on Facebook than YouTube. I guess they're all watching you over there. So, but social media is a monster that I will never figure out, and it is what it is, but it can be good. But anyway, Max, thank you for being on the show tonight, and thanks for what you do. And if you're new here, we are typically on the air Monday nights at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. And you can watch it live. Most people listen to the show, and if you listen, that's cool, but you can watch also. We are on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/weatherbrains, every Monday night, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. Jen would love to hear from you. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Max. Great to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thanks,
Appreciate you guys
Max.
having me on.
Bye, Ben.
I
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben,
Yeah.
Kevin.